Back in 1980, during the transit strike, a fellow named Elliot Winnick, who was with American Youth Hostels, came to me in the planning and said, should there be a transit strike, he would put out the cones. He would have minions of people to come out and put out cones every single day on 6th Avenue, on 5th Avenue, on Broadway, 7th Avenue. And then the strike hit on April 1st, 1980, and for 11 days, Elliot Winnick and his army of people put out cones, and thousands, tens of thousands of people rode their bikes in a protected lane up 6th Avenue and down 5th Avenue, down Broadway, down 7th Avenue. Post-strike, Ed Koch, who was mayor at the time, called me into his office. He had also just returned from Beijing, and he said, you guys did such a terrific job during the transit strike. I'd like to implement some of the elements from the transit strike. One of them was the car occupancy rule, and we proposed a form of congestion charging in 1980, and Ed Koch supported us. We got it through the local legislature in September, and we were sued by the Garage Board of Trade and the Automobile Club, and we lost that suit. That didn't happen. Double bus lanes on Madison Avenue did in fact happen, and the mayor gave us the green light to install bicycle lanes on 6th Avenue, separated from the general traffic by these concrete islands. We built these concrete curbs, filled them with asphalt, about 3 feet wide, in an 11 or 12-foot lane, so the bike rider had about 8 or 9 feet of protected right-of-way. We did that on 6th Avenue from Washington Square up to Central Park, down Central Park, down 7th Avenue, into Broadway, and then down 5th Avenue, right to Washington Square Park. And bikers had protected lanes, which was terrific, we thought. But there was a real quirk in that period. There was a 6-week period in June and July in which 3 women were struck by bikes and died, unrelated to the bicycle lanes. And that caused an uproar. Suddenly there was a surge of inexperienced bike riders. The bike pedestrian conflict was front page news, and suddenly we introduced the bicycle lanes, and pedestrians began to see the bike lanes as extensions of the sidewalk. So they stood right in the middle of the bike lanes, and there were conflicts between the pedestrians and the cyclists, and anger. And the anger got so severe that the mayor could not go anywhere without people complaining about it. At the same time, some of the bike riders said, we don't like being constrained. We're not second-class citizens. We should have 4 or 5 lanes on 6th Avenue just like the cars. And so they didn't ride in the bike lanes. And the bike lanes just didn't get that much usage. And they looked rather empty. So the mayor was catching it from all sides. The straw on the camel's back was when the mayor was riding with the president at the time, Jimmy Carter, and they were riding up 6th Avenue with Hugh Carey was the governor of the state of New York, and Hugh Carey turns to the president, and Hugh Carey could never resist a moment at a little jab at Ed Koch, and he said, Mr. President, look out your window, look at those bicycle lanes, see how Ed is wasting your money. And the mayor, right after that, called me into his office, and he said, Sam, you'll have to take out the bicycle lanes, which I was pretty upset about. There were some demonstrators of bike riders that wanted to see them continue, but the bulldozers came out and we removed the bicycle lanes. I think the reason that they're important is, yes, the very experienced rider in Manhattan traffic can do just fine and mix with the traffic and weave in and out of the traffic. But in 1980, I was a young father. I had a 3-year-old son, and he often rode on the back of my bike. I'd rather be in a protected lane. And if you're inexperienced, you're better off in a protected lane. As long as the lanes are ubiquitous enough, it makes a lot of sense to have dedicated roadway space for the bike riders. And I know all the arguments. The hard surfaces, the roads that we have today, We have the bike riders to thank for them. The American wheelmen from more than 100 years ago advocated for hard surfaces for bike riders. But nonetheless, in tough urban environments like New York City, like its 5 boroughs, I think physically separated bike lanes are appropriate. And I'd go further than the painted lanes that we have now. I'd restore the lanes that we lost. I think had we kept those lanes in, that we would have weathered the poor usage, we would have weathered the pedestrian conflicts, we would have weathered the critics from the cycling groups that felt that they didn't want to be channeled into this lane, and people would have talked about the great success of the bike lanes of New York City.